What's up everyone and welcome to the club. In today's video we're creating a sketch illustration of a dire wolf. Let's set up today's drawing with our sketch pad and something to draw with. I'll be drawing with this Faber-Castell HB pencil for a rough sketch, and then later on we're going to switch over to my 2B pencil to add some shadows and contrast. Now the first thing we want to do is add some guidelines to the center of our page. So let's start at the very top right in the middle. Just going to lightly sketch a line coming all the way down towards the bottom. Just using these short lines. Just pull this all the way down. Now it's a lot easier to draw a straight line by pulling the pencil towards us. Just letting gravity just pull the weight of our arm down. Now let's go back to the center. We're going to draw another line going across from left to right. Now I'm going to use these two lines to help us create a large circle in the center of our page, just to define the size of the head. So from the center point, let's move up to right about here. Just going to mark this off. Now the further we go away from that center point, the larger the circle will be. So let's measure that same distance down towards the bottom. So right here, mark that off. And then we'll do the same thing across this horizontal line. So measure the distance from the center towards the left, and then towards the right. And then to create our circle, we want to connect the center point of each mark with a curve. Now because I'm right-handed, I'm going to start with the top left side so I can see where I'm going. Just curve this around. And the circle doesn't have to be perfect. We're just using this as a rough guide. So just go back and just smooth this out as best you can. And working our way around, and then finally the top right of our circle. Just like that. Let's add another set of guidelines along the side of our circle coming down. Do the same thing on the right side. And we're also going to extend that up towards the top. This will help us align the size of the ears. And then finally, we're just going to add one more line going across the bottom of our circle. Now we're just going to zoom in to our drawing so we can get a better look. Now the most important part of any drawing is to establish the correct proportions before we get into the details. So let's start by placing in the center of the eyes. Let's split the left side of our circle in half. So right here, just going to find that center point. Draw a straight line going all the way up towards the top. And we're also going to pull that all the way down. Let's do the same thing on the right side. Find that center point, go all the way up, and then all the way back down. Now that's placed in the eyes. We're going to place a small circle along the top of this point. So right here, just drawing a small circle. We're just going to define the size of the eye, just like that. Draw that same size circle on the right. Let's draw a smaller circle in the center for the pupils. I'm just going to lightly darken up the inside. Now with the eyelid, we want to place this down along the top of the pupil. So on the left side, just touching the top of that pupil, going straight out. Just like that. Do the same thing on the right, going straight out. Let's go back to the inside. Angle this down. We're going to draw a straight angle line, coming all the way towards the center line. Just like that. Now right where this angled line meets this center line right here, we're just going to curve the brow, coming in and then out. Just bending that across. Let's do the same thing on the right, coming in and then up. Now you can pull this in a little bit closer just to reduce the gap in between the eyes. Just like so. Now from that same point, we're going to draw the edge of the muzzle. Draw a straight angle line coming down and out to right about there. Same thing on the right. And then we're kind of come down and then in toward that bottom line. From the bottom, let's step up. We're going to draw an oval for the nose. Just going to define how big this nose is going to be, so just like that. And we can always come back and readjust the size later. Let's add in the chin. From the left side, we're going to curve this down and back up towards the right. Now I want to add a little bit more shape to the cheekbones. From the outside of the eye, let's step out, come straight down. I'm just going to bend that in towards this point. Do the same thing on the right, just going to line this up, coming down, and then bending that in. Let's go back up to the top center. We're going to draw a straight angle line, coming down and out towards the left side of the head, and then do the same thing on the right. And we're going to use these lines to help us place in the base of the ears, just like that. Now, right from this point, let's step up to here. We're going to angle the ears, going up and then out And we can define how long we want to make the ears. Just going to stop right about there. Now let's draw the outside. We're going to curve this out and then back down. So just touching that outside line. Now that we have the rough proportions of the head, let's draw in the rest of the body. So from the side of our circle, it's going to draw a layer of the fur coming down and then in towards the center point, just underneath the chin on both sides. And now I want to turn the body over towards the right. So from this point, come down and in towards the bottom. Let's go back up to the top, towards the base of the ear, and bend this down and then out. Now at this stage, we want to take a quick step back, just take a look at our overall proportions. Now if we're happy with the layout, let's go back in and erase some of these guidelines so we can get a better look at our drawing. And while we're doing that, I want to mention that if you want to keep learning with me, I have a free 7-day trial inside the Sketch Club on School. You'll get full access to all my courses, workshops, and one-on-one coaching. I'll leave the link for you in the description below. Okay, let's do one more zoom in. We're going to come into the face because we're going to focus on adding some detail here. Okay, so now that we have a rough sketch in place, let's start adding some detail and shape using this rough sketch as a guide. So I'm going to start with the left eye. We just want to round out that top corner on the inside of the eye. Let's pull this down. And now I want to bring this in a little bit closer along the inside. So it's going to mirror this over on the right. And then from the top, it's going to curve the eyelid going up and then bend that down towards the side. Just define the edge of the iris, just darken that up. Now I'm just going to tuck the pupil in underneath and shade the inside. Let's add some thickness going around the eye. So we're going to step out, curve this down underneath, bring that up, and we're going to bend that down toward the inside to create a point. Just like that. Now let's go back and just lightly shade that trim going around the bottom of the eyes. Now right here, I'm just going to define this edge with a little bit of fur texture. So just adding these little short lines, just brushing this around towards the center and then out. So you see that I'm just overlapping these little lines, going across, and a little bit in between, and then up in the middle. Let's work our way down across the bottom of the eye. So right here, I'm just going to pull this little fur texture coming down to a point. Let's go the outside towards this line, curve this down, and then in. So we have this nice little curve underneath the eyes. Now we're going to go back and just erase the top of the iris just to make this a little bit clearer. Also a little bit of that rough sketch inside the brow. Now we can also pull this even further down just to enhance the expression even further, just like that, and pulling that fur down even lower. I'm going to just clean up that top of the eye. I'm going to come back and add some more fur texture along the top of the eyelid. So after I've come in, now right here, I'm just going to add a little bit of fur, just brushing this out towards the side, just like that. Now with the nose, we're going to start by dipping down the center along the top, come around the sides. And right here, we can just pull a little line coming up, a little bit of a detail there. Now the nostrils just swirl around. It's going to come in and then round that out. Adding a little circle. Let's go and just lightly shade the inside of the nostrils. And then draw on the bottom. We're going to come in. I'm just going to pull that down towards a little point along the center. And I'll split the nose just coming up halfway. Just like that. Let's add some shape to the muzzle and the mouth. So this actually curves down. We'll bend that up towards the sides. And it's always a good idea to take a quick step back and just check your proportions as you go. Let's round this out. Come up towards the mouth. Now right here, it's going to bend this out towards the corners of the mouth. Now there's a little dark spot coming back in. Just going to round this out and pull that in, and just darken up the ends. Just define the edge of the chin. And right here, it's going to go around the mouth. Bend this out towards the cheekbones. Now there's a little bit of detail coming down the center of the forehead. So we're going to start from the left side, bend this in, just adding a little bit of a fold, and then pull that down towards the center. Just add a shadow line coming down the middle of the forehead. Like that. Just darken up the fur shading along the side. Now right here, it's going to darken up the fur, just the shadow, and just bend that in. And you want to really enhance that socket around the eye. You can also bend that down. Now when I take a quick step, I can see that this eyelid on the right side is a little bit too low. So I'm just going to lightly erase that. And I'm just going to lift that up. Going up, and then out. Okay, so I'm just going to balance this out a little bit more. I want to do the same thing on the right. So I'm just going to lift this up, and then bend that out. And going back and just correcting our drawing. Now from here, I'm just going to bring the fur coming down along the side of the cheeks. So I'm going to roughly just brush this out and then down toward the side, just like that. Let's go and add some shape to the fur along the edge of the ears. So I'm going to start from the top. Just going to brush this out and down. So we're just brushing from the center of the head, coming down top. We're just trying to capture the right shape, not so much all the details. Let's add some fur brushing across the side of the head. So using this circle as a guide, I'm just going to add these lines coming across and then down on the side of the head. I'm just going to fade that in towards the chin, like that. Let's add that bottom layer, starting back on the left. I'm going to go a little bit longer with this fur. Then fade that in towards the center. Add some over on the right side, coming in towards the middle. And we'll finish off the bottom with some more fur on the side. Let's go up to the top of the head. We're just going to brush the fur going out from that line, and then fade that out towards the side of our page. Now with the ears, we want to stay within this bounding area, but we're going to refine the shapes. So start with the inside edge of the ear. It actually curves from the top of the head out. It's going to round up the tip of the ears. And let's just mirror that over on the right, just so we get the right balance. Come down on the side. Now right here, we're going to add a fold. Coming in, step up, draw the outside, and then bend that in towards the head. Let's add that fold along the inside of the ear, coming down, and then in on top of the head. Now I'm going to finish off the top with some fur. So just brushing our pencil up from the ear, coming in towards the middle, and then up towards the inside of the right ear. And then again, let's take another step back, take a look at our overall proportions, and let's clean up our drawing again. Now there's probably a few things at this stage you might want to correct. Now for me, I do want to fix that right eye. So I'm going to go in and make some changes. Now this eye right here on the right, I just want to pull this in a little bit closer towards the inside. So what I can do, just lightly erase the eye, just so I can still see it underneath. And just pull this in. So right here, just going to trace that same line on the inside. Trace the iris. We're going to go a little bit darker. So I'm just demonstrating how you can easily adjust your drawing if you've gone a little bit too far or it doesn't quite look right. Go ahead and shade in that outside of the eye. Now that looks a lot better. The eyes aren't too far apart. Like that. Also just readjust the cheekbones and that shading. Now at this stage, we're going to add a little bit more pressure to the tip of our pencil and start refining the shapes and adding some more detail of fur around the eyes. So let's start down here. Just going to press a little bit harder. Just brushing the fur coming in across the top of the eye. Now right here, just going to brush this up and then out. So going a bit darker to define that edge, and then just fading that out towards the side. Now, right here, I'm just going to add a little bit of a layer or fold. Some fur going in the same direction. Let's do the same thing on the right. Starting along the top of the eyelid, brushing this out and down, and then refining and enhancing that fur along the inside. Now right here, I'm just going to add that fur, just brushing this across. So brushing the fur going around the brow and then out. Let's add a little bit more fur in the center of the forehead. Now this is just a little bit of fold and detail along the inside of the brow. So we just want to come down and in. Let's darken up the edge of the iris. Now I also want to add a little bit of a highlight to the inside of the eyes. So let's finish off by darkening up the outside of the iris. I'm going to place the highlight on the top left side. So just draw a small rectangle, just crossing the edge of the pupil. Let's go ahead and just darken up the center of the pupil, going around that highlight. Now I'm going to show you an easy way at the end on how to get those highlights to pop. Just like that. Darken up that trim around the eyes, and just darken up the inside. Let's enhance that fur coming down from the inside of the eye. Just brushing that out. Now as I come down, I'm just lightening up the pressure of the pencil. Let's go back to the outside. Now here, I want to brush that fur coming down and in. So we're going to go darker along the top and then fade that down towards the bottom. So the reason why we go darker across the top is because this eyelid is casting a bit of a shadow along the top, just underneath. So you want to show that there's a little bit of weight in the fur. So making it darker along the top gives it that impression that's tucked in underneath the brow. Now we're going to go back to the side. Just lightly brush this fur, going around the side and then down. And right here, you can brush this up and then out. Now here, I'm going to switch over to my 2B pencil. We're going to add some contrast and darkness to the nose. So let's start with the nostrils. I want to start by curving this in, just tracing the nostril, and it'll darken up the inside. We want to go as dark as we can with the inside of the nostrils. And I'm also watching the gap in between the nostrils, making sure it's not too far apart or too close. Work our way around the side, and then fade that up. Now as you get up to the top of the nose, just going to lightly trace that out. So it's not too dark. Dark across the bottom, in towards the center. And then we're going to darken up that center seam. Go back and just clean up the nose. And then we're going to work our way across the mouth. So just going to add that split. Now I'm going to add a soft texture just along the edge of the mouth, starting with the left side. Just these short lines, just crossing the edge of the mouth. Just going out towards the side. And then from the bottom, we want to work our way up on the side. Going up and in. Let's wrap this around the corner of the mouth and then darken up the inside. Now we want to soften up the fur across the chin, starting from the left. Again, just using this rough sketch as a guide. And we don't want to go too far away from it because we've already established the proportions. Let's darken up that area just underneath the mouth. So from the left side, we're just going to darken that up, just pulling this down a little bit lower. Just working our way across. And then just pulling those lines coming down. And we're just going to come back later and clean that up. Just go to the bottom of the mouth. Just pulling that fur around the corner of the mouth. Pulling this in. Now right here, it's going to enhance the cheekbones, brushing this up and then out. Let's go back up to the top. Just going to darken this up. Just pulling that point coming down the side. Now with the fur across the cheeks, we're going to break this up into separate sections. So this area right around the cheeks, we're going to start from the side of the head. It's going to go darker and just brush that up and in. So we're going to just separate the top edge, just aiming towards the corner of the eye. Now right here, it's going to work our way down, just pulling these lines coming in. And we're just going to brush this down towards the side, just like that. Let's work our way up. So along the outside, again, going darker along the outside edge, and just pull that in towards the side, towards the ears. Now right here, I'm going to continue going across the base of the ears. Again, we want to go darker and just fade that in, just loosening up the pressure of our pencil, and we're going to soften up the fur texture. Coming in like that. Let's add another layer, going up and then in. Now we can add a little bit of a stripe and separation along the side. So right here, I'm going to darken up the top and then taper down towards a point along the side. And this just helps break up those large areas inside those white spaces. Let's go underneath the chin and brush this up and then out. So we've got this fold underneath the head. So this separates the head from the neck area. And we're just tapering that out. So it's darker underneath the chin. Let's work our way around the side, starting back and left. Now here, I'm just gonna vary up the direction of the hair. So we're gonna come down and out, bend this in, and then curve that back in towards the side of the neck. And I'm just gonna work my way down. Just pulling this up and out with this curve, coming up from the center of the neck. Now as you come in towards the middle, I'm just gonna fade that out. Let's go back and draw the outside. Coming down towards the bottom, and then we'll fade that out. Let's go back to the center. Just gonna define that point, brush that out towards the side. I'm just gonna go a little bit darker. Now here we can pull this down and go up. So we're just varying the length of this fur, and then fade that out towards the side. Let's add some more layers along the outside. So let's start back and left. Just gonna lightly pull that fur coming down and in. Let's add another layer on the right side. You see that I'm just sweeping this out and then curving that back up underneath. Let's go to the base of the ear. Just gonna pull this out, going dark again, and then bending that in. So it fades out towards the bottom. Also add a little bit more underneath. Now let's draw the outside. So this fur along the back is a little bit longer, and we're just gonna rough this in. Don't need to pay too much attention or too much time in this area. Now if you're worried about smudging your drawing underneath your hand, you use a separate piece of paper underneath. So let's start around the ear. So right here, it's gonna add some short fur. So I'm just working across this rough sketch, just pulling this pencil up and then in, just like that. Now on the outside, I'm gonna brush this in, round at the top. Now working our way across the inside of the ear. Let's go back to the bottom. I'm just gonna add some longer fur, brushing this out, and add some short fur along the inside. And we're just gonna work our way in towards the top of the head, just like that. Do the same thing on the right. Let's brush that fur going up and out. Now let's finish off the top of the head just by brushing that fur going up and then out. And again, just always checking your drawing as you go. You don't want to go too far and then realize that something is totally off, especially when we're adding contrast and shadows. Now I'm just going to continue to add a little bit more fur along the inside. So just like we did along the cheekbones, I'm just going to lightly add some more texture inside those empty areas. Let's go across the brow. I'm just going to add a little bit of texture on the center of the head. Okay, now I'm going to switch to my 2B pencil. I'm going to use this flat edge and start adding some light shadows and darker tones. So let's start with the inside of the ear. So it goes darker along the center. So I'm just going to brush this thick fur, starting from the base of the ear, going up and then out. And then I'm just going to taper and soften that up as you go up towards the top. Let's do the same thing on the right. So starting off wider across the base, we're going in the center of the ear and then fade that up towards the top. Just like that. Let's darken up the base. Just pulling some of that texture, going out. Just going to darken up the inside along the bottom and then fade that out. Now just looking for these little darker areas in the tones of the fur. Let's go across the center of the head. And then the inside of the brow. And we're just softening up the fur. Now I'm going to go back to the nose. I'm just going to lightly darken up the bottom and then gradually fade that up towards the top. So just filling the inside of the nose with a darker tone. Now I want to add some shadows inside, but we're going to leave a little bit of a highlight along the outside edge of the nostril. So let's start from the outside, darken this up, and then fade that up towards the top. Come in towards the middle, and then up over the right nostril. So we're almost like tracing the inside of the nose. Just darken up the center, coming down. Go a little bit darker across the bottom. And I'm also going to darken up the shadow underneath the brow. And then the cheekbones. Now I just want to sink this area in. So I'm just going to darken that up and then fade that out towards the side. We're also going to darken up the mouth because this is going to get pushed into shadow. And soften up the edge. Darken up the center of the muzzle from the nose. Fade that out towards the side. Now just up above the nose in the center, we're going to leave a small gap. And I'm just going to brush some of that soft fur going up the middle and then down. Add a little bit of a tone from the eye. And we're also going to soften up this fur across the cheeks and then the outside. Now right here, I'm darkening up the chin, just underneath the mouth, because we want to push this into shadow very softly. Now I'm going to go back to the ears. Just going to darken up the tone on the inside half. Darken up the bottom and then fade that out. Very subtle effect. Now along the bottom of this fur, this layer, it's going to darken that up. So we're just softening out that texture and just fade that up towards the top. I'm just working with the same curve of that fur. Let's do the same thing across the bottom. And we're just going to fade that out. Now this head is also going to cast a shadow across the neck. So I'm just going to darken this up and then brush this down, working with the curve of the fur. Just going around the chin. Let's start with the right side. As you come up, we're just going to fade that out. Just like that. Go back to the center and then work our way around the left side. Now you can see that I'm just going to cross into some of those highlight areas. So this will help the eye finish off the textures. So the eye has something to follow. Just gonna Add some light tones to the inside of the face. Start with the center. I'm just going to brush that out toward the sides. Now I'm going to switch to the tip of my HB pencil. We're just going to refine that texture. So let's start along the top of the nose. Just these very light lines crossing into those shadow areas or to the darker tones. And we're just working with the flow of the fur. So here along the side, we're just going to pull this down and out, just very lightly inside those tones. Now the direction that we create this texture will help shape each of those forms. Now also across the neck, we're also going to add those fine textures inside. And also refining the shape of each area, just using these lines. Let's add those micro details. So underneath the eye, add a little bit of a fold. And brushing some of that fur texture inside those large white areas. Now let's go back to the ear. Just going to brush some of that longer fur coming in. So from that center, that darker area, we're just going to pull this in, across towards the inside of the ear. Now from the inside, we're going to brush in the opposite direction. Just along the inside edge of that seam, crossing the center. And on the outside of the ear, just going to brush that texture going out. Just very roughly. Now let's go back to the base of the muzzle. Just going to add those little spots going across toward the center. Just a very subtle effect in here. And now I'm going to start adding some stripes in some various tones, just using the side edge of my HB pencil. So this will help enhance some of the forms and shapes. I'm just going a little bit darker in specific areas. So I'm just going to add a darker point in the center. Now I'm just going to go in and just darken up our contrast. Now if you have access to a white gel pen, you go in and just enhance those highlights inside the eyes just to help them pop. Now I'm just going to wrap up my drawing by adding a little more texture around the outside and also adding a bit more shadows, but I encourage you to continue to refine your drawing and take your time with this. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. If you want to take your drawing skills even further, you can join our sketch club on School. And right now I'm offering a free 7-day trial so you can access all our courses and lessons. I want to thank you for joining me today. Stay creative and I'll see you in the next one.